world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
War Eagle, and welcome to another edition of Ever to Podcast. This is the show where we catch you up on the latest Auburn news, discussion, topics, things that you need to be aware of when you're out and about trying to discuss the Auburn experience with the Auburn family. All about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family here. If it's orange and blue, it is what we do. So thank you so much for joining us in what we're going to be doing today here on Ever to Podcast, episode 85. As we discussed with you all last week, we are going to be trying this on a more regular basis on Fridays coming out for you. So all the news that we're going to be discussing here is from the previous week, dating back to about Monday, all the way up until Thursday. So if there's big things that happen on Friday, you won't necessarily hear about it from us on there, but if there's something big enough that we need to talk about, we might do a special episode of Ever to Podcast. But this should get you to the weekend, and if there's time, we may even get a little bit of a preview of what to watch this weekend at the end of all those things. So let's catch you up on the latest in the Auburn experience. We're going to start off by mentioning in the pros, a lot of Auburn in the pros news this week, a lot of good, a little bit of maybe somber stuff too at the end here too we want to make you aware of. But let's start with the good stuff. The Super Bowl is set, and certainly that doesn't necessarily seem like the most Auburn topic, but as is typically the case, Auburn has representatives of that, former Auburn Tigers in the Super Bowl, and that is definitely the case this year. In fact, even in the conference championships, there was always going to be an option for an Auburn Tiger. Somebody was going to make it to the Super Bowl. In fact, somebody on both sides was going to make it to the Super Bowl because there was that many out there. Your official representatives for the Super Bowl on the Seattle Seahawks, players-wise, Derek Hall and Nehemiah Pritchett. On the players' side of the New England Patriots, you're going to have Carlton Davis. Now, there are two other representatives that are former players that are coaching with the Seattle Seahawks, Josh Bynes and Nico Thorpe. Nico Thorpe is very well associated with Seattle Seahawks. It's tough to say. Have you figured that out for me thus far? Josh Bynes more so with the Ravens back when he was playing, but he's over there coaching now as well. So you just pick a side at this point, and you have Auburn representation. For me personally, I've never been a fan of the Patriots, so sorry, Carlton Davis. I will definitely be pulling for the Seahawks in this. It would be really cool to see Derek Hall get that Super Bowl. Either way, I'm excited just to see all the Auburn guys, and we'll be rooting for all of them in some capacity in the Super Bowl. Hope you will be too. A lot of news centralized around players in events such as the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl this week, leading up to them going to the NFL Draft. Your Shrine Bowl representative was Dylan Wade. That was played this week as an offensive guard, is what he was listed at on the roster, part of the East squad of the Shrine Bowl. Fortunately, his team did lose. Haven't really heard anything about how he did, but certainly he's been here for him, but one of Auburn's more solid rocks of offensive linemen over the last couple of years, so I think somebody will find value in him. The Senior Bowl, really cool. First of all, your representatives, I should tell you that. Jeremiah Wright, offensive lineman, and then Kieran Crawford, defensive lineman, were your Senior Bowl representatives and hasn't played yet, but will be your representatives. This week, you probably saw a little video circulating around of him just tearing a new one into an Alabama offensive or defensive tackle, I guess, or defensive lineman of sorts. LT Overton, I think is his name. But that was really cool. Jeremiah Wright, just like we talked about with Dylan Wade, has been around for a long time, probably one of the more secure ones of the offensive line. Hoping he finds some success and continues to turn heads throughout the duration of everything with the Senior Bowl this week. Moving over to some more pro news, we're soccer. Taylor Chisholm, a former Auburn soccer player, just got signed by the Tampa Bay Sun FC. So another opportunity, if you're an Auburn soccer fan, for you to follow something in the women's league. And that brings us to a little bit of the somber news in Auburn in the pros to round it out. Wasn't expecting to get something like this week. Most of you may remember the name Brendan Valdez. He is a former Auburn Tiger, member of that national championship team. He's been in the pros, working his way through the different circuits. It was announced this week that he, unfortunately, is dealing with a little bit of a cancer issue and is already sought treatment, and looks like that, from what was reported, may have been successful in some sense, and he plans to be back out there competing in some capacity in the pros. But that's still a little bit of a, it's so young. Brendan Valdez, he was just on the championship team. So if you are a believer in the power of prayer, as I am, I hope that you'll extend your prayers to Brendan Valdez for what, not only what he's done here at Auburn, but just, as we want to wish him well as human beings as well, too. So prayers continue to go out to you, Brendan. And we'll be pulling for you, and continue to watch your pro career, because it looks like you are already hopeful for your return in the next year, was what the article was written about him. Let's move over to baseball. We're still getting a lot of preseason stuff, hype for certain players. One of the things this week was D1 Baseball put out their top 50 catchers of the preseason. Now, you can go through the whole list, but you don't have to go very far to find Auburn's. No shock there, right? You've got Chase Fralick at number 5. If you're curious about who is ahead of him, it looks like a Razorback, a Georgia Tech, Texas, and Bearcats. I'm going to guess that's Arizona, either that or Cincinnati, ahead of him right now. But he is top 5. That's pretty amazing after a very early and young career for Auburn baseball, considered one of the top 50 catchers, the top 5 catchers by D1 Baseball coming into the season. Let's switch over to the other side of the diamond as their season rapidly approaches. One of the more exciting things this week was a reveal of Nike uniforms. By the way, if you haven't, to go check out on YouTube our conversation with Clint Richardson of the Auburn Uniform Database. We broke down all the spring sports reveals on that for baseball and softball for uniforms. But they revealed this week some very nice looking, and I'm not one of these people that gets overly excited about uniforms or anything like that. But I got to admit, when they pulled out this blue with orange pinstripes look, I'm all about this. And there was a lot of hype and discussion about this from the players and from the coaches on social media this week, but definitely the fans as well. So I think we're all excited to see that it has that Auburn script in it as well as part of the pinstripes. Looks pretty dang good, if we're going to be honest. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Another little bit of preseason hype on the softball side of things, a name that you're probably familiar with, Anna Leo Adams, I believe I'm pronouncing all that correctly, was named to the All-SEC preseason team. No shock there after what she did in her first season as Auburn softball's players of choice, one of their high-profile players of choice. Moving over to tennis, still ranked number 4 as they continue a very promising season for women's tennis at Auburn. A lot of expectations, and they're holding firm there. A little bit of an interesting week, though, for them with schedules. Apparently, they had, as part of their ITA championships that they're in, were supposed to play Oklahoma State this week. They defaulted to Auburn, so Auburn got the win and moves on to play Michigan up in Ann Arbor. I tried to find some information about what the default was. I couldn't find anything that was hardcore facts, although if you found some recent articles in the last year, it seems like that program has gone through some issues. So I would guess maybe there's some holdover from that. I don't know, but for whatever reason, Auburn doesn't even have to compete. Maybe they were just scared of the number 4 Tigers and how formidable they seem to be this year. But that's a little bit of interesting news there for women's tennis.
What's going on? I'm Arch Manning, Viore athlete and college quarterback. Whether I'm running, training, traveling, or just unwinding at home, I love doing it in my core shorts from Viore. With a breathable boxer brief liner, they're quick to dry, super versatile, and stand up to even my most intense training sessions. Plus, they come in 3 inseams and a ton of colors. Ready to try a pair? Go to viore.com/arch and get 20% off at checkout. I think you're going to love them as much as I do. That's viore.com/ARCH and get 20% off your first order. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Have a great day.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's talk about basketball, men's and women's. We'll start with the men. What a great week it was for the team, for individuals like Keyshawn Hall. He got SEC Player of the Week for all that he did last week, not to mention what he did, Kevin Overton did, versus Texas, 88-82. We broke down that whole stats and score situation and stories. If you haven't checked it out on YouTube, I would. We had a lot of fun breaking a lot of that down, the history of it all, 4 straight SEC games in a row. Only tied 3 turnovers, tied a team record of only 3 turnovers in the game. That's pretty incredible. So great week for Keyshawn. Great week for the team. For women's basketball, their gauntlet just continues. They hosted South Carolina. If you know women's basketball, South Carolina is pretty legit. They did lose 51-81, but that's not to be unexpected when you're facing a team that's finding its new foundation, is facing someone like a Dawn Staley team. That tends to happen from time to time. A little bit of an update on their schedule here. The Mississippi game, the Ole Miss game, is not only first moved to a different day on Monday, they are now going to be playing what was supposed to be the game in Oxford is now going to be played in Birmingham. If you're aware what's happened with all the winter weather, Oxford's been really hit really hard, and so unfortunately they've had to not only change the day but change the location now after the fact. So Auburn folks in Birmingham, you have a shot to come see this women's basketball team, and I think it's actually free to the public too at Legacy Arena. So come check them out if you haven't done so already. This season, this is a good opportunity for you to do that. All right, let's talk about men's golf. A little bit of hype for them for the season. Ben Hogan Award, if you're not aware what that is like the Heisman Award for men's golf at least. I can't remember if there's a different one for women's golf, but no shock here. Jackson Coyven is on the watch list. He won it as a freshman, I think came in second. Technically, I don't know if that was an official second last year by probably a close margin, but also Josiah Gilbert is now on that watch list as well. I can't remember if he's been on there previously, but I think that's very much deserved. He's been a mainstay, part of that championship team as well. So 2 guys on the Ben Hogan Award watch list. Women's golf, they got their first win of the spring season at the UCF Challenge, and that is, as they posted, quite the way to start off your spring with winning that UFC Challenge, beating out the likes of Mississippi State, UCF, Baylor, Penn State, USF, Florida Gulf Coast, Kent State, Nebraska, South Alabama, North Alabama, Abilene Christian, East Carolina, Charlotte, Northern Illinois, and Old Dominion. In that order, they beat everybody 24 strokes, or under 24 strokes to 20. Mississippi State was the closest one to them. Not only did they win it, the individual champion of that tournament was obviously an Auburn Tiger, Katie Cranston. It's not obvious, but obviously you would think that would have the individual winner as part of that. It's her first collegiate win at the UCF Challenge too, and cool video. The team celebrated by rolling her as you would Toomer's Corner. So go check that out on some of their social media accounts. That was a really cool way to honor her in the very special moment that they had for her and for the team to start off spring. Keep wrapping up most of our conversation here. Let's do some football stuff. We haven't done that yet. So we'll talk about some updates for staff. I know these probably aren't the most exciting ones, but they're still adding extra on the field or off the field personnel. Desmond Morgan is an assistant for safeties. Ernest Thomas III is an assistant for corners. And then Jake Springer is a defensive quality control, essentially, coach. So those are some more updates for the staff this year. If you know any of them, give them a shout out and tell them War Eagle, welcome to the family. A little bit of way too early preseason hype continues for Xavier Atkins on 3. That website put out their way too early 2026 college football All-American team. No shock. Xavier Atkins found his way onto that. It's like, duh, at this point. Let's be honest. Probably the more exciting news for football this week was the quote-unquote kind of official end of the transfer portal class. Auburn put out a video basically announcing that this is the transfer portal class. What that tells me is, and some comments from Coach as well, that this is probably the bulk of it that you're going to see for a while. In fact, I would ask you, if you haven't, go to YouTube. You can find the press conference or interview of sorts that Coach Galesh did at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, provided through the athletic department that we have on our YouTube channel. I always encourage you guys, make sure you listen to these whole things here. So kind of coupling those 2 points together, it looks like the class is pretty much done with a few pieces that could be figured out, whether that's people who may have some eligibility left to be figured out, or some other spots that may come in and be filled if some of that stuff doesn't work out. But they celebrated it this week, so we'll kind of call it a complete class at this point. But go make sure you check out that interview if you have not done so as well. Soccer, not roster news, but coaching news. They have picked up, and they call it rounding out the staff, with Tara McQueen, who comes from North Alabama. Her specialty is goalkeeping. So she'll be, I guess, assistant goalkeeper coach, or whatever you want to title. It's just assistant coach on the website. But welcoming her to the Auburn family and obviously helping build back up that goalkeeping unit that has had Maddie Prohaska for years, and the new ones that came in last year. Welcome to the Auburn soccer coaching staff. And let's round out with some university news here. Just general stuff about the university or anything else in that realm that needs to fit into that spectrum. If you're interested, when people ask you, where does Auburn rank in these things? Well, they posted this week the U.S. News and World Report for 2026 Best Online Programs Rankings and many others. You can find where the Harbauer College of Business, Education, Samuel Ginn College of Engineering, College of Nursing all earned recognition. Several programs were in the top 10, the top 20. So go check that list out. You can find it on the Auburn University website, the Auburn at Auburn U social media accounts. They posted it this week. I think it was Wednesday. If you want some fuel when people ask you how good is your school. And finally, with a feel-good story that I think all of you will appreciate if you're not aware of, Miss Dee Ford, not Mr. Dee Ford, Miss Dee Ford, the legendary fan from over in the UK who mistakenly, but beautifully mistakenly, became an Auburn fan because of a case of identity mistake, someone mistaking her identity. It's a really cool story. We did a series called the Auburn Roots. May bring that back one day. She asked me all the time to bring it back. She was episode 1 explaining her Auburn story in that. You need to go check it out, learn about it. But 12 years ago this week, she became that mistaken identity happened, and thus began her journey of becoming one of the best Auburn people that I know out there. So shout out to good friend of the show and good friend, personal friend of mine, Miss Dee Ford. Love you, Dee. All right, so that is your news for this week. That took a little bit longer than I thought. So real quick, here's your weekend calendar that you need to be aware of. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Friday, track and field Bob Pollock invite. Swimming and diving, the Iron Bowl, as people will call it, of swimming and diving in Tuscaloosa. I call it the Rust Bowl. Think about it. It'll hit you. Saturday, track and field still at Bob Pollock invite. That's over in Clemson. Equestrian gets their spring season going at UT Martin. Men's basketball at Tennessee this week. Big time matchup. Senior Bowl actually happens on Saturday as well, if you want to pay attention to how Keyron is doing, as well as Jeremiah Wright. Sunday, men's tennis at Clemson. Gymnastics at Georgia. A lot of on the road this week, as you can tell. Women's basketball will be on the road, just at a neutral site now, as we discussed, in Birmingham to take on Ole Miss. And women's tennis will be at Michigan as part of their ITA competition. Folks, that is your news, and that is what you have to look forward to this weekend. I hope you feel informed on the Auburn experience here on episode 85 of Ever to Podcast. As always, we want to hear from you, things that you may want us to bring up on our different content, e2cnetwork@gmail.com, or direct messages on social media. As always, when we read you, I want to remind you that the Auburn Creed asks you to do these things. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. We ask you to do the same. War Eagle.